What if I told you that every single thought you have right now is physically rewriting your brain? Not metaphorically, literally. At this very moment, the neurons in your head are firing, your cells are responding, and your body is undergoing chemical transformations based on what's happening in your mind. And here's the shocking part. Most of us go through life completely unaware of this process. We think our thoughts are just abstract ideas floating around in our heads, when in reality, they're creating a cascade of physical changes throughout our entire body. Changes that compound day after day, year after year, eventually determining not just who we are, but who we become. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to explore something that bridges ancient Buddhist philosophy with modern neuroscience to answer one of humanity's most profound questions. How much control do we actually have over our own transformation? Because once you understand this, everything changes. Let me start with something that might seem obvious but is actually revolutionary when you really think about it. Every gesture you make, every movement your body performs, every action you take, all of it originates from your mind. This isn't just a spiritual concept. This is biology. This is physics. This is observable, measurable reality. When we talk about the mind, we need to make an important distinction. Brain is an organ, a physical structure made of matter. It has weight, it takes up space. You can hold it in your hands, but the mind is something different entirely. The mind is energy. It's a special type of energy that operates through frequencies and vibrations. The brain uses the mind the way a radio uses electricity. It's the medium through which consciousness operates. Think about what happens when you see something that makes you angry. Immediately, your face changes. Your jaw clenches, your eyes narrow, your shoulders tense. But what created that change? A thought, an idea, a mental image, and that mental image triggered a cascade of chemical reactions throughout your body. Your brain released cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate increased. Your blood pressure spiked. All of this happened because of something that exists only in your mind. This is where most people miss something crucial. They think the brain controls the mind. But it's actually the reverse. The mind controls the brain, which then controls the body. The brain is like the hardware, and the mind is like the software. You can have perfect hardware, but if your software is corrupted, the whole system malfunctions. Consider someone who has spent years thinking angry thoughts, harboring resentments, dwelling on past wrongs. Over time, these mental patterns don't just affect how they feel emotionally. They physically reshape their brain. The neural pathways associated with anger and hostility become stronger and more efficient. The release of stress hormones becomes their body's default state. Their facial expressions literally change shape. The muscles around their eyes, mouth, and jaw develop different patterns. Within a few years, you can literally see the difference between who they were and who they've become, not because their circumstances changed, but because their thoughts changed. Now contrast that with someone who has spent years cultivating compassion, forgiveness, and kindness. Their brain chemistry is completely different. Their baseline stress hormones are lower. Their immune system is stronger. The patterns of their facial muscles create different expressions. They've literally rewritten themselves from the inside out, one thought at a time. This is why understanding the mind-body connection isn't just interesting philosophy. It's the key to understanding how transformation actually works. To really understand how this works, we need to talk about something that most people have never heard of: the relationship between your senses, your consciousness, and your genetic memory. You have 6 primary senses. Most people think about the obvious 5: sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. But there's a 6th sense that's equally important: the sense of mind itself. Your consciousness is a sense organ just like your eyes or ears. It receives information, processes it, and responds to it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. These 6 senses are not just passive receivers of information. They're active collectors of experience. Everything you perceive through these 6 senses creates an impression. In Sanskrit, this is called a vasana or samskara, a deposit or imprint. Think of it like grooves being carved into vinyl records. Every experience leaves a mark. Every perception creates a trace. But where do these traces go? They don't just disappear. They accumulate. They layer on top of each other. And over time, they become encoded into your very biology, specifically into your DNA and the neurons of your brain. This is where genetic memory comes in. Your genes don't just carry physical traits like eye color or height. They carry memories. They carry behavioral patterns. They carry predispositions and tendencies. When your ancestors went through traumatic experiences, those experiences didn't just affect them psychologically. They created epigenetic changes, modifications to how their genes were expressed. And these changes could be passed down to their descendants. But here's the empowering part. This works in both directions. Just as negative experiences can create negative deposits that are passed down, positive experiences create positive deposits. Every time you practice compassion, every time you meditate, every time you choose kindness over anger, you're not just affecting your brain in this moment. You're creating genetic deposits that will influence your children, your grandchildren, generations down the line. This explains something that ancient philosophers understood but modern science is only now catching up with. Why certain practices have transformative power. When you repeatedly engage in contemplative practices, meditation, conscious reflection, deliberate compassion, you're not just changing your thoughts. You're literally rewriting the instructions that your cells use to build and maintain your body. A person who practices meditation for just 10 minutes a day creates measurable changes in their brain structure within 8 weeks. The parts of the brain associated with emotional regulation become thicker. The parts associated with fear and stress become smaller. But these aren't temporary changes. They persist. They compound. If that person continues the practice for a year, for 5 years, for a lifetime, the changes become profound. The same principle applies to every practice, every habit, every repeated thought pattern. Your brain is constantly being remodeled by your choices. Neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. Ancient traditions called it the law of karma. The mechanism is the same. Your actions create conditions that shape your future. Now let's talk about something that most people overlook completely, the way your body speaks. Every movement you make, every gesture, every posture communicates something. But more importantly, every movement and gesture reinforces something within you. There are 4 fundamental elements in nature: earth, water, fire, and air. These aren't just physical substances. They're also principles that operate within your body and your consciousness. Your physical structure, your bones, your muscles, your organs, these are earth element. Your circulatory system, your digestive fluids, your tears, these are water element. Your warmth, your metabolism, your energy, this is fire element. Your breath, your movement, your circulation, this is air element. When you stand in a certain posture, when you hold your body in a particular way, you're activating and expressing these elements in specific combinations. A posture of defeat, shoulders hunched, chest caved in, head down, activates a certain configuration of these elements. A posture of confidence, shoulders back, chest open, head held high, activates a different configuration. But here's what most people don't realize. The posture doesn't just express the internal state, it creates it. If you hold your body in a confident posture, you actually become more confident. If you hold your body in a defeated posture, you actually become more defeated. This isn't just psychology, it's physiology. The position of your body directly influences the neurochemistry of your brain. There's an old saying, fake it till you make it. But that's not quite accurate. It's more like, act it till you become it. Because when you consciously hold your body in a particular way, you're sending signals to your brain. Your brain receives those signals and responds by adjusting your neurochemistry, your hormone levels, your immune function. Over time, if you maintain the posture, you eventually become the person that posture expresses. This is why ancient contemplative traditions emphasized so much the importance of proper posture during meditation. It wasn't arbitrary. It was precise, calculated, designed to activate specific states of consciousness. The 4 primary postures, standing, sitting, walking, and lying down, aren't just different positions. They're different modes of consciousness. When you sit in meditation, you're entering a mode of receptivity and introspection. When you stand, you're in a mode of vigilance and presence. When you walk, you're in a mode of movement and progression. When you lie down, you're in a mode of release and surrender. And each of these modes activates different parts of your brain, releases different hormones, and opens you to different kinds of understanding. But here's what's even more profound. Within each of these basic postures, there are countless variations. Your facial expression, the position of your eyes, the angle of your head, the tension in your shoulders, all of these create subtle but significant variations in your internal state. When you watch someone and they seem angry, you're not just seeing their thoughts about anger. You're seeing the physiological expression of anger. The narrowed eyes, the clenched jaw, the tightened neck muscles. But all of those physical manifestations create a feedback loop. The angry expression reinforces the angry thoughts, which reinforce the angry expression, which reinforces the angry thoughts. It becomes self-perpetuating. This is why people who have spent years dwelling in anger actually look angry, even when they're not currently thinking about what made them angry. Their face has been molded by anger. Their muscle memory has encoded anger. Their default configuration has become angry. The same is true for compassion, kindness, and peace. People who practice these qualities develop different facial structures, different muscle patterns, different energetic signatures. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it in the way they hold their mouth, their shoulders, their entire being. Let's dig deeper into the biochemical reality of this process. When you perceive something through your senses, when you see a beautiful image, hear an inspiring story, taste something delicious, feel a comforting touch, that sensory input doesn't just stay as sensory input. It gets translated into chemistry. Your senses communicate with your brain through electrical signals. Your brain then translates those electrical signals into chemical messages. These chemical messengers, called neurotransmitters and hormones, travel throughout your body. They influence everything: your mood, your energy level, your immune function, your digestive capacity, your reproductive health, your sleep quality, everything. When you see something that attracts you, something beautiful, something desirable, your brain releases dopamine. Dopamine creates a sense of pleasure and motivation. It makes you want more of whatever you just experienced. Over time, if you repeatedly seek out experiences that trigger dopamine release, your brain becomes increasingly sensitized to those stimuli. You need more and more to achieve the same effect. This is the mechanism of addiction. Conversely, when you see something that repels you, something ugly, something threatening, your brain releases cortisol and adrenaline. These are stress hormones. They trigger your fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases. Your digestion shuts down. Your immune function becomes compromised. And again, if you repeatedly expose yourself to triggering stimuli, your brain adapts. Your baseline cortisol level increases. You start living in a constant state of low-grade stress. But the fascinating part is that your brain can't actually tell the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined experience. If you spend 10 minutes visualizing a threatening scenario, your brain releases stress hormones as if the threat were actually present. If you spend 10 minutes visualizing a beautiful, peaceful scenario, your brain releases calming hormones as if you were actually in that peaceful place. This is the mechanism by which meditation works. When you sit quietly and deliberately cultivate peaceful, compassionate thoughts, you're not just thinking nice thoughts. You're triggering a cascade of biochemical changes. Your stress hormones decrease. Your parasympathetic nervous system activates. Your immune system strengthens. Your brain structure actually changes, with gray matter increasing in areas associated with emotional regulation and decreasing in areas associated with fear and stress. Here's what's revolutionary. These changes are not permanent unless you make them permanent. If you meditate once, your brain will return to its previous baseline within hours or days. But if you meditate consistently, every single day for weeks, months, years, the changes become entrenched. They become your new baseline. You literally become a different person. This is where the concept of updating becomes crucial. Every experience you have, every thought you think, every stimulus you perceive, it's all an update to your system. The question is, are you consciously directing these updates, or are you allowing yourself to be randomly updated by whatever happens to grab your attention? Most people are reactively updated. They encounter whatever stimulus comes their way: a disturbing news story, a critical comment from someone, a failure or setback, and their system gets updated in a negative direction. Over time, these random updates accumulate, and they end up at a place they never intended to be. But a person who understands this process can become proactively updated. They deliberately seek out experiences that update them in the direction they want to go. They practice thoughts that strengthen the neural pathways they want to strengthen. They expose themselves to stimuli that create the biochemical conditions they want to create. They are the authors of their own transformation. We need to talk about one more crucial element: the power of intention and repetition combined. There's a principle in Buddhism called the Eightfold Path. It's not actually 8 separate things. It's 8 aspects of one unified way of being. Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. When these 8 elements are all activated simultaneously, they create a particular configuration of consciousness that is extraordinarily powerful. But here's what most people don't understand. If you're only activating 4 of those 8 elements, you're not achieving half the benefit. You're operating at a fraction of the power. It's like trying to run your computer on 4 of 8 cylinders. The system becomes unstable. This is why ancient wisdom traditions always emphasized wholeness and integration. You can't just meditate for an hour and then spend the rest of your day being angry and critical. You can't spend an hour in compassion and then spend 8 hours in greed. These contradictory states literally fight with each other within your system. Your brain gets confused. Your hormones get dysregulated. Your entire being becomes fragmented. But when you activate all the elements of the path, when everything you do, everything you say, everything you think, everything you intend all points in the same direction, something extraordinary happens. Your entire being becomes coherent. Every cell is aligned. Every neuron is firing in synchrony. Your whole system works with maximum efficiency. Think about it like this. If you want to move a heavy object, you might be able to do it by yourself if you use all your strength. But if your left arm is pulling one way and your right arm is pulling another way, you'll just tire yourself out without accomplishing anything. But if all your strength is coordinated in one direction, you can move mountains. This is why people who have deeply committed to a spiritual or transformative practice seem to change so rapidly. It's not magic, it's efficiency. They've aligned all their elements. Every thought, every action, every intention is reinforcing the same direction of change. So instead of their energy being scattered in different directions, it's concentrated like a laser beam. And this is the real secret. Transformation is not something that happens to you. It's something you build brick by brick, deposit by deposit, update by update. Every single day, you're either building toward who you want to become, or you're building toward something else. There is no neutral. There is no standing still. Every moment is a choice, and every choice is an update to your system. When you really understand this, when it goes from intellectual understanding to embodied knowing, everything changes. You stop asking, why do I have to meditate? And you start asking, how can I meditate more effectively? You stop asking, why do I have to be kind? And you start asking, how can I become kinder? You stop seeing spiritual practice as obligation, and you start seeing it as the most rational, self-interested thing you could possibly do. Because here's the truth. You're going to change anyway. You're going to be updated by your experiences whether you're paying attention or not. The only question is whether you're going to deliberately direct that change or whether you're going to let it happen randomly. And once you understand the mechanism, once you really see how it works, deliberate direction becomes the obvious choice. So here's what I want you to take with you from this exploration. You are not stuck with who you are. Your brain is plastic. Your chemistry is responsive. Your cells are constantly being renewed. At the physical level, most of the cells in your body are replaced within 7 years. At the neurological level, your brain can rewire itself at any age. At the genetic level, you can influence the expression of your DNA through your choices. You have more power over your own transformation than you've been led to believe. The only question is what you're going to do with it.